Me to speak. Okay. So breakfast, lunch, and evening meal. Hopefully.
And planning for the weekend coming. It's always a pleasure to come your way. Plenty to discuss, as always, here on the show. One thing I keep saying about this particular show, right, is designed for us to have a conversation to talk about issues affecting us here in the UK and, of course, beyond the shores of the diaspora. So do get involved with the discussions that we have here. Today's show, later on the show, we'll be talking a bit about the upcoming Nigerian election 2023. The election is actually on the 25th of February. Next month, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect a new president. When it comes to Nigeria, it's very crucial. It's really, really important, simply because the most populous nation across the continent of Africa and one of the most, well, not if not the most powerful economic country. So whatever happens in that country will significantly impact on other countries, surrounding neighbors. So it's very important when it's everything to do with Nigeria. Today we'll have the APC, Mr. Doherty here, Tinder Doherty, talking to us. He's the chairman for the APC UK chapter to talk about the upcoming election. Make sure you send in your comments, okay? Because I know a lot of people are interested in what's happening. The reason why this particular election is important is because there's a third force, the Labour Party, spearheaded by Peter Obi. A lot of people are tipping him to cause an upset in this upcoming election, and the youth in particular seems to be siding with him. Or is it going to be the same old two strong arms, the PDP and the APC? So make sure you stay tuned. But coming up right now on the show, we're talking about type 2 diabetes. Now, this particular disease really affects people from Afro-Caribbean community and, of course, Asians as well. And we want to understand a bit more. What should people look out for? And what do you need to do if you happen to be diabetic? How do you manage it? And to help us to discuss this is Douglas Trinifor. Douglas is a specialist in diabetes and also, a dietitian as well, plus head of care at Diabetes UK. Douglas, thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
Now, I know we've spoken in the past about, type 2 diabetes. Actually, when I posted that we're going to have this discussion, one of the first questions I received was, okay, you're talking about type 2 diabetes. What about type 1 diabetes? Is there any difference?
So there are differences between the two. The main difference is that type 1 diabetes is the type of diabetes where people do not produce any insulin at all. So everybody with type 1 diabetes will be treated with insulin, and that treatment will be as soon as you are diagnosed. But for type 2 diabetes, which you rightly referred to, you're producing some insulin, but the insulin is not working properly, or you're not producing enough. So when one is diagnosed with type 2, the immediate treatment is not insulin. You will be asked to maybe lose a little bit of weight, and then you'll be given some tablets. But at some point, you might need insulin. Okay. The fact that you need insulin at some point does not change it to type 1 because the mechanisms are different.
Okay, all right. So you cannot actually, more or less get type 1 diabetes. Is it something that you're born with, or you cannot develop it?
You can't develop it. The difficulty is we don't fully understand why some people develop type 1 and some don't. But the main thing that we are learning is that it tends to run through families.
Okay.
So when you say you're born with it, there's some truth in that. However, it's not that when you're born, you have it. You will have it at the course of your life.
Okay.
And normally the peak age that people develop it is around 13. But we do have some people who develop it later stage.
Now, I said, and if you happen to follow me across social media platforms, I said today that 2023 is about prioritizing your health, okay? And this is something that is actually, causing a lot of distress to people in our community. And it's something that is avoidable. And if you happen to be diabetic, it is manageable, right? Now you've spoken about the insulin. What is the insulin, and what is the primary function of the insulin?
Okay. So insulin is a hormone. And again, that makes it even difficult.
More
what's
technical.
What's a hormone? So normally hormones are things in our body. They are more like some molecules or some proteins in our body where the body produces it in one place, but it is used in other places.
Sure.
In the specific instance of insulin, it is one of the key things that helps us to use food. So mainly food that has carbohydrate in it. So sugar, your plantain, your yam. When you eat it, you need insulin to be able to use it to produce energy for playing football, energy for all the things we do. If you don't have insulin, what happens is that when your body more or less metabolizes the carbohydrate, it turns into sugar. Okay. And the sugar tends to stay in your blood if you don't have the insulin to use it for energy. And we know that if you have too much sugar in your blood for long, it can cause a lot of problems.
Now, you mentioned something there about carbohydrates, and especially, people particularly from West Africa and also from the Caribbean as well. Our food, the food we consume is highly carbohydrate based. So then the question would be, then how does one, mitigate? How do you make sure you're not consuming a lot of carbohydrates? Because usually, majority of of our people, our food intake, probably have rice, fufu, or yam, or what else, dumpling, or rice and peas. I mean, these are food that are highly in carbohydrates.
So there's a question, there are two questions there. First is the quantity of carbohydrates we eat, but also the quality. And I'll explain the quality because the quantity, everybody will understand that. The quality is that if the carbohydrate has come more or less straight from the farm and hasn't gone through a food manufacturer's more or less production belt. And I'll explain what I mean by that. For example, if you have cassava and you're cooking cassava to eat, it's healthier than cassava that has been made into a flour and then you are using it for fufu.
Okay.
If you understand me. Similarly, if you have wheat and you're eating wheat, it is healthier than wheat that has been turned into flour and into bread. So the less processing, the better. Having said that, if you go by that, the most of the food or the carbohydrates we used to eat back home are very healthy.
Okay.
Where we probably get it wrong is how we cook it and the amounts that we eat.
Yeah.
And the amounts, you have said that. I still don't understand why we've been brought up to think that, first of all, fufu, when you're going to eat it, you need 2 balls. Or kenke, you need 2 balls. There must be a reason why 1 ball looks like the fist of your hand, but we tend to eat 2. The idea is that most people can do with 1. What you want to do is to add more fish, add more vegetables like your tomatoes and onions, so that you are not eating too much of the carbohydrates. That would be the option that I will suggest to people.
But then one will argue, for instance, if I'm having, carbohydrates and I have soup is made with tomatoes, does that balance it out? Or
so if the soup helps you to have 1 ball of the fufu, then it's helpful. But if you are having the 2 balls of fufu and adding too much of the soup, at the end of the day, you are increasing your calorie intake. And in terms of type 2 diabetes, even though I mentioned carbohydrates, the main driving factor, apart from the factors that we can't do anything about, such as our ethnicity and family history, the main driving factor is our weight. So if the calories are pushing your weight up, irrespective of whether the calories is coming from carbohydrates or it's coming from your palm oil, it will still increase your risk of type 2 diabetes.
Now, before we come to, the symptoms and all that, because I remember the last time we spoke, you made mention of the amount of meat we consume.
Yep.
And, the normal households, when you see soup or stew, it's just flavored with a lot of meat. Is that also a factor?
Absolutely. There's good evidence that red meat increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. And by red meat, I mean our own beef, you're talking about our own goat meat and things like that. And even more so, processed meat, such as corned beef and things like your sausages and bacon. They increase your risk of type 2 diabetes. So the key in there is, for example, if you are making a soup, you can use fish, you can use some poultry, which do not increase your risk of type 2 diabetes. But also, I even tell people that to make your soup a bit bulky, you add things like your spinach, or for some people, you might want to add some beans to bulk it up. That will help you to reduce the amount of red meat that you're using, and that will help reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes.
Okay, let's talk about symptoms now, because some people might feel as though they're not at risk because they might not have put on weight, but they feel unwell and can't really pinpoint what the issue is. What are some of the symptoms?
So the key symptoms of diabetes, but specifically type 2 diabetes, are the fact that people tend to go to the loo more. So you'll be weeing more, especially during the night. So if you are getting up and it's not like you, that has come up quite quick recently, where you get up once or twice to go to the loo, you might want to check it out. People tend to be more thirsty, which means that you drink more water as well. Some people lose weight without trying. So you are not really making a conscious effort to lose weight, but all of a sudden you see that your clothes are loose and things like that. You might want to check it. And the other thing is that you might get a bit tired. But all these symptoms sometimes are subtle, especially when you are working and you are growing. You might say, oh, maybe I'm getting old.
Yes.
Maybe I'm working too much. That is why I'm getting tired. But I'll say that be a bit cautious. If one or two of these symptoms are becoming more consistent, then you need to speak to your GP. For some people, you might see that your eyesight goes a little bit blurry. And for some people too, when you have some cuts, it might take a bit longer to heal. All these things might point to the fact that you may have diabetes, and in which case it's better to check and see if it is not diabetes, then you can have your peace of mind.
The one thing I've noticed is that, especially within the Afro-Caribbean settings, there is a level of stigma attached to diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, I should say. Well, a lot of illnesses in general, but in particular type 2 diabetes, you tend to realize that many people shy away from talking about it and sharing their experiences. If one has been diagnosed, what should the person do? Because a lot of the times, and I'm saying this because there's been cases where these things have happened, right? You tend to realize that, there is this thing called, herbal medicine, where a lot of people are saying that, this can help reduce your glucose levels, your sugar levels. If you're diabetic, you can come on this and this will help. And some of our people tend to go down that route. what would you say as an expert?
Okay. So the bit about what people should do when they have type 2 diabetes, my advice usually is to seek help. And that's a bit, what should I say? It's a bit loaded. Seek help might mean that you need to speak to your GP and try as much as possible to understand the justification of them putting you on medication or whatever advice that they're giving you. Seek help also means telling people around you, and it might mean your partner or your family. And the reason is that it does have an impact on them. As from our culture, we tend to eat from the same pot, i.e., we cook the same food. It might mean that when you are told that maybe reduce this food, reduce that food, normally the things that they will tell you to reduce when you have type 2 diabetes are things that everybody else should be reducing anyway. So if you tell people around you and you even give them that, you could even empower them to also make some changes that may also go a long way to help them.
Yeah.
A bit about herbal or traditional medicine, what I say to people is that, because I know it's a bit complex, because there's this traditional beliefs attached to them. So what I say is, first of all, if you have any complication of type 2 diabetes at all, then you need to be super cautious. And the reason is that some of these medications can actually make diabetes complications such as kidney disease worse. But at the minimum, what I tell people is that even if you want to take it, one, you want to make sure that your GP is aware, and two, it shouldn't replace your orthodox medication or your mainstream medication. And the reason why I say that is I have seen people who have lost their limb, people who have lost their eyesight because of over-reliance on these traditional medications. It's not that the traditional medications caused these, but because they were not managing their diabetes and the traditional medications were not helping to manage their condition as they would have wanted, in the end they developed these complications. So I'll say be cautious, speak to your GP, which might be a difficult conversation, but it's in your interest.
What are some of the complications? Because you've touched upon it, and I think it's important that we talk about this.
So unfortunately, when type 2 diabetes is not managed in a way that keeps your sugar levels in the healthy range, you can lose your eyes. So in the UK, loss of eyesight within the working population, type 2 or diabetes is the main cause of it. People lose their toes, feet, or actually their fingers, things like that. People get amputated because of type 2 diabetes. If you go to dialysis departments, most of the people there will have diabetes, which means that diabetes is the main cause of kidney diseases that lead to that people needing dialysis. And unfortunately, again, it is one of the main causes for heart attacks and strokes as well. So it doesn't mean that everybody who has diabetes will go on to develop these complications, but it is some way, a way of giving people the information that you can do something about it. But unfortunately, if you don't get the help to do something about it, it can lead to this. But recently, we have also seen that for people who ended up in the hospitals with COVID, and those who had to go to ICU and RDUs, i.e., as in the people who were dependent on things like ventilators, and eventually, many of the people who died had diabetes because of the underlying damages that the condition had done to them.
So, supposedly an individual has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. How does one manage, to still live a healthy lifestyle?
So, about 90% of people who have type 2 diabetes will be people who will benefit from losing weight. So the first line of management is, if you are in that category, then finding some support to lose weight. And I always stress on the importance of support, because losing weight is not an easy task. It is not. Probably one of the difficult tasks that people take. And even it is even more timely, because many people tend to have that as their New Year resolution. So get the support. The support might mean that you go to do a bit more physical activity, but also look at what you're eating and try to reduce the portions that you're eating. That's the first thing. The second thing is that at least about 50% of people who have type 2 diabetes might need to take medications. And I know medications are a difficult conversation to have within our community.
Yes.
Mainly because, especially within us as men, there's some idea that most of the medications may have some effect on your manhood. But they push back on that. It's that diabetes in itself, if it is not managed, can also have an effect on your manhood. So on the balance of probability, you're better off having the medication for your diabetes than not having it at all. And recently we have known that, or we've come to see that for some people, when they have type 2 diabetes and they are able to manage their weight, they can actually more or less put the condition into remission, i.e. people who were from the beginning taking medication for their condition, when they lose weight, they don't need the medication any longer, but also their blood sugar levels tend to then behave as though they didn't have the condition. So
does that mean that it is reversible?
So yes, reversible, yes. But we are a bit careful not to use the word reversible, because that connotes some semblance of permanency, i.e. I've reversed it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
For us, because the data is not that ripe for us to say that, yes, when you put it into remission, it will be forever. So that's why we are a bit cautious to say remission instead of reversal. But it gives people hope. It gives people hope that, oh, this condition is not necessarily going to get worse as time goes on, and that I can maybe put it into remission and then monitor it as time goes on, because that monitoring is also very important.
Now, I know you're also a dietitian, and I know that our viewers and listeners will be thinking, okay, so if I'm supposed to cut down the consuming a lot of carbohydrate, what are the alternatives?
Okay, so my advice usually is not to cut out carbohydrates at all. And the reason why I say that is about 2 years ago, before, let me go back a little bit. Around 2016, there was a lot of back and forth between healthcare professionals, experts, researchers in this country about whether a low-carb diet is the best way to manage type 2 diabetes. And some of the debates were, I'll say, very, very nasty on social media and things like that.
So we'll come back to that. We're taking a quick break, and we'll continue our discussions when we come back. We'll be back right after this.
Leatherback helps you move your money securely from one country to another with ease. With over 20 currencies to choose from, including Indian rupee, Naira, Ghanaian cedi, and US dollar, with Leatherback you can move money anytime, anywhere. Simply sign up, verify your identity, and you're ready to add money to your account. Leatherback is licensed in 4 countries, and with full visibility of your cash flow via our dashboard, you're in control. One access, one platform, one world. Download the Leatherback app and let the journey begin.
I am so hungry.
Looking for Pardon in your crayfish stock or seasoning with any other ingredients. Tropical Sun has everything you need.
And it's young, strong young man. And hero.
Mommy the real hero.
Tropical Sun flavors of the world to your table.
I am so hungry.
Thank you, Daddy.
Looking for Pardon in your crayfish stock or seasoning with any other ingredients. Tropical Sun has everything you need.
And it's young, strong young man. And hero.
Mommy the real hero.
Tropical Sun flavors of the world to your table.
Welcome back to the program. Just to remind you, we are streaming live on Facebook. You can go to Talk Africa page on Facebook, or My Channel 7 Facebook page, and you can watch the show. And we're also streaming live on GN Radio. So all you got to do is download the TuneIn app and listen to us. Okay. Or alternatively, you can download the My7 app and take us along with you wherever it is that you are going. If you're just tuning in now, I'm here with Douglas. We're talking about type 2 diabetes. I'll say this and I'll keep repeating it and I'll keep re-emphasizing it, okay? Because 2023 is all about prioritizing your health, and type 2 diabetes is something that it is a phenomenon within the Afro-Caribbean community. Now, before we went on the break, you're talking about the debate on social media.
Yes, indeed. I was saying that different healthcare professionals and experts were of the view that going on a low carb diet is the best way to manage type 2 diabetes. So the UK government got into the debate, as in got interested.
Yes.
And put a group of experts together. And luckily for me, I was part of that group, and I actually co-chaired the group to look at all the evidence around, very quality published evidence, to see whether it is true that a low carb diet is the best way to manage type 2 diabetes or not. And the findings were that in the short term, it seems to be, but in the long term, it's not any better than any other approach. The best approach for type 2 diabetes is to find a way of losing the weight, irrespective of which foods you take out and which foods you bring in. So long as you're able to bring your calories down and you're able to lose the weight, for the long term, that's the best approach. Why am I saying that? I'm saying this because your question was whether if people are diagnosed with type 2, what should they be doing? You need to find a way to eat healthily. And eating healthily, there are a lot of information around. Some are not one that you want to be really focusing on. The key is that there are foods that everybody knows are good for us. Nobody can tell you that vegetables are not good for you. It might not taste well, but vegetables are probably the group of foods that every single expert believes is good for us. Fruits are also good, even though some experts do not believe that fruits are good. So long as you do not sit down and eat a bowl of grapes, but then you have a handful now and a handful later, it is okay to eat as well.
I had a bowl of grapes, dear.
There you go. Then and it is easier to do that, especially when you don't have it regularly.
Yeah.
When you do have it, you have it at a go.
Yeah.
So the best advice is that you have about a handful now and a handful later. But how you benefit from fruits is if you eat it regularly, rather than a bulk of it once a while. Also, you also want to prioritize on whole grains. So for example, if you're buying bread, buy the one which is seeded and the brown one. Those are better than
kind of food you're mentioning. They're not easy to eat. One might think, because a lot of people are used to eating white bread, sugar bread.
So if you eat white bread, your best bet is now to look for the 50-50, which is a bit of the middle
combination.
Yeah, and then you can transition to the brown one, because the brown one, there's good evidence that the brown one is good. But for us as Africans, our best bet is to stick to our main staples. So your green bananas for our Caribbean community, plantain for us, yam, even our kenke, because the maize is fermented, it is good. The key is the number of balls we eat. That is the key. Things like our lye soup, if we are making the lye soup, you want to use the lean part of the meat or use more fish. Those are some of the things that I would say people should do. But in all things, try not to be drinking your calories. And by that, what I mean is things like fizzy drinks and our malt and things like that. They do not do well if you have type 2 diabetes.
Okay. Douglas, thank you very much for coming in today.
Pleasure.
All right, so that was Douglas Trenefo, head of care at Diabetes UK and a specialist diabetes dietitian. Now, moving on swiftly from diabetes, from health to politicians. Well, it's politicians who come up with solutions to try and keep us healthy. Nigerian election next month, 25th February. Nigerians will go to the polls to elect a new president. Now, we had the opportunity to speak to some Nigerians in Nigeria about their feelings with this upcoming election. Let's take a quick listen to what they had to say.
I will vote for Tinubu. The reason why I say I will vote for Tinubu, because since 2015, I'm coming for Lagos. I know everything about the time when Tinubu did for Lagos, for governor state, for governorship. You know what they bring for Lagos? He booked Lagos. For instance, if you talk about Lasma, Tinubu vote Lasma, Hausa day for Lasma, many tribes day for Lasma.
Things are not working fine. That is why you see a lot of people, they are agitating for a new government. They feel that APC and PDP has failed Nigeria. And if you look at the unemployment, the youth, they are just going down on a daily basis, no hope. So we want a turnaround.
And I am going for Peter Obi because I want a better Nigeria and because I see that he is qualified for the job.
See the former election the one that he left. So we are suffering. No money. Everything there expensive. There's no money for this country. Children to go school, wahala. to eat, voila. To buy something to eat, voila. To make money for business, voila. Business no go up. Anything, no, everything very, very poor for this Nigeria.
This election, I no send them message. I no send them message. I do on my own. You understand? If you can't vote for them, they will use their slave. Now so they cry. Our masses they die. If you go for a company with a good result, they don't go give you work. You don't need to vote for any person. Don't vote on God. Now God not be my reason why I don't vote for them. You say they four people hand. So that is it. If you say no vote for them, they go only they kill us, they go. Our masses they die. Go to East now. We are dying. Enough. It's enough. Election time, I did my house. I don't send a message to bros. I feel what can be.
Right, so that was views of some Nigerians we spoke to in Nigeria. And joining us today, we have Honorable Tunde Doherty, who is the chairman of the APC UK chapter. He's also the chairman of APC Committee of Diaspora. Thank you for coming on once again.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers at home.
The last time we spoke briefly about the security issues in Nigeria. And when you listen to a lot of Nigerians, this is an issue for them. Just a couple of days ago, it was also reported that, the security issue might have an impact in the upcoming election. This is from the INEC, the electoral body of Nigeria. Let's talk again, APC, about the security issue. This time, what is the plan?
The plan is right there in the APC manifesto. Let me once again thank the viewers at home. Yes, the security challenges in Nigeria is a bit of concern. And I must assure you that APC government, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, is really trying its best to make sure that these incessant attacks, incessant security challenges are curbed. And also, the incoming president of Nigeria, by the grace of God, and his vice, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Senator Kashim Shettima, have a very great program to improve on the security situations in Nigeria. You look at Nigeria, how we are in Nigeria. You look at the number of men who are in our armed forces. The number is nothing to write home about in terms of combating the kind of crime we have in Nigeria these days. Then if you look at the police service, you look at it that our policing system is not too fit for the country. So the incoming president and the Renew Hope manifesto has addressed this in terms of, one, recruiting more men and women for to the armed forces, and also try as much as possible to reclassify the policing of Nigeria. Now, in terms of everybody has been campaigning for state policing, community policing, and we know how police is, especially in this country that we have. Even here in this country, we have transport police, we have all of those things, and I believe those issues has been addressed within the manifesto. And I know it is not addressed alone. It is the practical manifesto that is written with solution. Is a solution providing manifesto. So therefore, immediately by the time the next president comes into power, is going to make sure that the Nigerian policing system is declassified. Then we'll have state police, we have local government police, so that it will be easy to combat crime from the lower level to the upper level. If you look at Nigeria in those days, we have what we call kill and go. Kill and go are police that when it comes to a tense situation within the country, that's when you see them come out. And there are a lot of other things that they are going to, the manifesto has addressed, increasing the salary of a police, their welfare system, improvement in their welfare system, and giving them hope that yes, they are doing the right job protecting the city.
I understand, and I'm sure Nigerians and people watching will understand what you're saying. But I do recall, because you mentioned the police and the military as well. And these are the body that's supposed to protect the citizens, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about SARS. Maybe we'll come to SARS. But I remember one particular time when there was kidnapping, where the police essentially were blaming the army, and the army vice versa blaming the police. And there seems to be a disconnect. And this was under the outgoing president, Buhari. So if you look online, people are actually referencing these type of events, these type of things that took place within the police and also the military. And clearly it looks as if maybe perhaps, the issue to do with security is maybe beyond capabilities of the politicians themselves.
We cannot assume that it's beyond the capability of the politicians or the civilians, so to say. Policing the nation is the responsibility, yes, of the government, and secondly, it's the responsibility of the people. It's like the first rule of health and safety is your safety first before you can save the other. And why the community need to participate in all of this is the information system. You understand? We cannot eliminate the people from security information because they know their environment. So they know they can pick up on people that will do all of this.
They live in fear.
Yeah, yes, they live in fear. But you see, gathering information and dispatching information to the rightful place, yes, there's fear here and there, but it saves 9 than for you to keep quiet because you don't know, maybe it will be you.
Okay.
You understand? So the government is putting resources into combating crimes, into combating all sorts of insurgencies. But the thing is that it's difficult because the president is not the head of the police. The president is not, even the police chief is not the one that would be present at all places of strategic damage.
But then everything comes from the top.
Everything comes from the top.
I just want to talk about something else, which will lead us to our next discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, as the saying goes, the devil finds job for the idle hands. And there's been talk about the insurgencies, how these groups, especially Boko Haram, recruiting young boys. And when you look at it, there is a clear link with unemployment and people falling into crime.
Yeah, you are right, definitely, because definitely an idle mind, as they say, is the devil's workshop. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, unemployment has been the great challenge in every economy, not even in Nigeria alone. But the point is that is why the Renew Hope has been designed in a way to create employment, especially to cater for the youths. Because the youths are majority of the youths when they graduate it's difficult for them to get a job. And Nigerian youths are very creative. They are very skillful. All they needed is that encouragement in terms of government providing them with that infrastructure, that skill requisite, that opportunity for them to even become an employer of labor. So either way you looked at it, the manifesto has addressed that in terms of creating skill acquisition system for the youth, make them employable, train them, provide support in terms of giving them serious education on technology, because the world is drifting to technology, so that they can be more creative. They can now utilize their creativity to create employment to create employment and become employers of labor and become the food basket of the nation. And also the youth, part of the youth empowerment program is in agriculture. Agriculture is the mainstay of an economy, because that is the economy that provides food for the nation and for exports. So therefore, the government is going to invest so much in agriculture, encouraging the youth to take on agriculture. You know, there are so many empowerment programs within the reach of the Renew Hope manifesto for the incoming government. And I can assure you that Nigerian youth is better for it, because the manifesto, the government, that is the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kasim Shettima, has really taken the youth as one of the most important, valuable factor within the economy. Let
me just come in there, because again, I recall when President Buhari took charge. I mean, the things you're saying are the same things he was saying when he took charge. And I remember, I think the tagline was anti-corruption, equity, and fairness. And also his policies and manifestos were driven towards the youth, but it didn't come to fruition. And there's a sense of apathy, particularly.
I disagree. I disagree with you.
There's a sense of apathy, right? Especially amongst youth. If you listen to one of the clips that we played there was a man that was saying, listen, people are fed up with the APC and PDP because they've been in power. PDP 16 years, APC 8 years. And things have not changed for the youth.
Let me tell you, Nigeria is going to be experiencing the full fruit of democracy in continuation of APC government. I disagree with you if you say the president has not fulfilled his promises within the last 8 years. No. If you look at the agri sector, a lot of incentive has been provided into the agri sector. A lot of youth has come into agriculture. A lot of funds here and there has been put in place for youth to participate in agriculture. And I can tell you, I know so many youth in Nigeria who has participated in those programs who are today multimillionaires. You understand?
You're talking of a few. I mean, the level of unemployment in Nigeria is staggering.
You see, it's going to. You can't say an economy would engage every unemployed person at a time. It's a gradual process.
No, but Nigeria has a high level population of youth.
Yes,
and these youth are not getting employed.
They are getting it. I'm telling you, my brother Jones. The thing is that you see, it's a gradual process. You understand? Infrastructure is one of the major investments that this government has expended on, and because of infrastructure will create the enabling environment for employment. So if you look, let's say for example, now yes, we know the energy sector is a bit epileptic and all of that. Imagine today the infrastructure, the money, the funding that is going into the energy sector. Let it materialize. Then you see a lot of wealth creation within that space, because if you have light, a lot of things will go. If you have steady light and all of a lot of things will go on. So the government has been spending on that infrastructure to improve those processes, and this is government is a continuum process. So yes, you can't do everything. You're talking about I think you were talking about the justice system or whatever. The government is in 3 tiers: executive, legislation, and judiciary.
Yeah.
So in Nigeria, the principle of freedom of all the threes are being put into place and into practice. You understand? So you cannot expect the president to go and become the judge, right? So the challenges are there. We all know the challenges are there. There is delay in terms of prosecution. There is delay in terms of hearing cases and all of this. And all of this compound some problems that we are seeing in terms of insecurity and all of that. Because just when justice is delayed, there's that grief within the factor that, oh, are we getting the right thing? Is the right thing being done when this person has done this and nothing? Oh, no. The president can only appeal to the judiciary to say, look, please, try more. But the president cannot lord his own, he cannot lord anything on the judiciary. So also the legislation.
I was more talking about the youth because right about now, according to polls, the Labour Party seems to be ahead. And there seems to be, like, again, I'll come back, there seems to be an apathy.
Again.
Right? I understand you shouldn't rely on polls, but, when you speak to a lot of the youth, it looks as if that, the Labour Party, Peter Obi, is somebody that has been able to draw the youth. And I just wanted to put to you, is it a thing where maybe APC, PDP, these parties, the two giants, as it were, have more or less lost touch with the citizens.
Let me tell you, if you take a poll today of the youth that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has empowered, and His Excellency Kashim Shettima has empowered, Obi cannot go near those numbers. If you look at Asiwaju's government when he was there as the governor of Lagos State, the empowerment on youth, no governor of in his time can equal it, even now. So when you are talking of Obi, when you go to, tell me, how many individuals, how many young Nigerians detribalized from every tribe that Obi has empowered? You see, the problem is this: I would say the youth are naive, because the youth they are edging for change. You understand? But the point is that the youth need to be mindful and go back in history and do their due diligence well before they can come up and say, this is the person that they want to vote for, this is the person they want to vote for. The man you're talking about is an inconsistent individual. The man who has jumped from almost 3-4 parties because of personal interest. Go back to Anambra State. Go and ask those that have even worked with him. That you cannot say about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima today. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been a detribalized Nigeria. He was the first governor to made sure that his executive are across all regions of Nigeria. You understand? He's the same person that has given opportunity. In Lagos today, you have at least four southeastern individuals who are part of the House of Assembly, who are even representing Lagos in the National Assembly. How many other states can verge of that? So you look at the antecedent of this this gentleman, and you can easily pick. Look, forget about the pools on internet. I can assure you that majority of those internet, they say, how many? Let me. Do you know Duse? You know where they call Duse? Or you know my village? If I say my village. If I say my village in Ondo State. How many people has phone there? How many people can even afford data? Talk less of reading internet on a daily basis. It is a matter of the grassroots touching them to hold your voters card.
But do not underestimate the youth. But I just want us to
underestimating the youth is not what I'm talking about. The youth has the opportunity to go and get their PVC. But I can tell you, 75% of those that are on the internet or taking the social media space don't even have voters card. We all know all of this. If you want to fight a system, you must fight the system within and use the perimeter or the provisions of that system to deal with that system. But when let me give you an example. Let me give you an analogy.
Yes, briefly.
Yes, in Lagos, right? I used to have some friends who are bankers, who are comfortable, who are white collar guys. Right? On the day of election, they sit down in their house watching TV. They even go out to the street and play football. They don't even go to the polling booth to go and vote. They look at it as another day of rest and enjoyment for them. At the end of the day, they are the one that will go to start analyzing papers and all of that. So in Nigeria, okay, what is the population of Nigeria? Over 200 million. How many Nigerians registered to vote? Less than 80 million. How many of them has collected their PVC? Less than 60 million. So what are we talking about? And they have forgotten that a nation, you understand, politics is local. It's from the grassroots. You see what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing now. From the first day he's made up his mind that he's going to run for presidency, he has been consulting from one place to the other, The man has never had a rest. He is going to those that will make things happen. Not somebody going for a conference there, and believe and telling you to go and verify. What are you verifying?
There's a lot of discussion to do with the age of candidates. And I just want to ask you if you can let our viewers know how fit is he, and does he have any health implications at all?
My brother, a man that has not rested in the last 2 weeks, that has been attending rallies every day, that will travel from one state to another in a day, and is on the podium there addressing the mammoth crowd, and you are telling me that person is not fit. My brother, can you, as you are now, have no rest within the next within the next 4 hours? You won't be able. You won't even be fit to come to work tomorrow. You understand? So if we are talking about somebody that is healthy, you look at his programs, how he's attending to his program, how he's doing things. You see, there's one thing a lot of us don't look at. Earth and nature of human being is in the hand of God. You understand? You see people that are agile, that you believe this person is this and that. It could easily fall and pass on. But Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that I know is strong, is healthy, and he has all the capacity to lead Nigeria in the next 4 years.
Okay. Honorable Tunde Doherty, thank you very much for coming on the show. I would have liked us to talk a bit about the economy and Nigeria's debt, but I think time has beaten us. Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, we can do it. But let me tell you that Nigerian economy is going to revamp back. Nigeria is going to the wealth of Nigeria is air.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Always
My
a pleasure.
pleasure. Everybody take your PVC and go and vote APC. Yeah.
Nigerians will make their decision come February 25th. We're done for another day. Big thank you to Douglas for coming on, and of course, Honorable Tunde Doherty for coming on the show today. We'll do it again, same time, same place next week. Until then, it's goodbye from us.
So,